Hello friends and welcome. The first week of TI is over, the group stage known as the Road to the International. So I thought we could do a quick meta analysis. I am not a pro obviously, but I'll just share some trends that I've noticed in case you haven't been able to keep up with TI. Keep in mind I am talking about the pro scene, not the pub scene. You can do some of this stuff in your pub and it'll be good. Sometimes it'll be less good because the pub scene is not the same as the pro scene. Many tanky heroes right now are popular, such as Kunkka, Primal Beast, Earth Spirit, Earth Shaker. I don't think the meta specifically requires tanky heroes. It just so happens that many of these heroes are good. And so we're getting into a trend where these heroes are low cooldown. They don't tend to need too much. So many of them are buying a Heart of Tarask, making them very tanky. They get a good amount of damage from the strength as well. And now you have to deal with them. And then they buy a Blade Mail. And it's just a pain because, like, I gotta kill this really tanky hero with a ton of health, and I'm gonna get a bunch of damage reflected to me. I don't have that much damage in the early game, so I don't really want to deal with this guy. But if I don't deal with him, he's gonna take my towers. He's gonna be farming up. He's low cooldown, so he's gonna run around like trying to kill us all the time. So it's a huge pain. You have to have your own tanky heroes, or anti-heal has started to become more popular as well. So Spirit Vessel or heroes like Ancient Apparition who can just prevent healing from an item like Heart of Tarask helps to cut down on these tanky heroes. You're also seeing a rise in percentage damage. So heroes like Phoenix, there's like double value there. Your own teammates who are tanky and have bought Heart of Tarask, because their max HP is higher, the percent heal from Phoenix's Sunray is healing more. And then the enemy team is tanky, so you're doing a percentage of their health. And that way, even as they buy like 5 hearts, for example, you would still do that percentage of damage, which makes it possible to kill them. I'm also noticing several heroes that have some kind of armor manipulation. And I think the reason for this is to go back to these tanky heroes. Magic damage just doesn't scale as well in this game unless it is percentage damage based, which only a few spells in Dota 2 are. Most of them are flat values, which you can then kind of boost a little bit further with an item like Kaya, but at some point it falls off. And when you got to do like 6,000 damage to this guy who also has magic resistance, it just doesn't work as well as physical damage, which due to the way attack speed and damage and then like critical strike chance, all that stuff, you can end up with like critical hits that are like 2,000 damage plus. And so you can actually shred through these tanky heroes unless they have a bunch of armor. But many tanky heroes are strength heroes or universal heroes, and they actually don't have the best agility gain, so they don't have a ton of natural armor. They have to buy it. So heroes that have armor manipulation, like Dazzle, they can either buff up your own tanky heroes on your team or reduce the armor of the tanky heroes on the enemy team so that your carry can then kill them with their sustained physical damage. That is just, there's more potential there compared to magic and pure damage, which tends to be kind of like this flat amount of burst, obviously with a little bit of scaling. And finally, you'll notice Hand of Midas is being bought a lot more than it used to be. Part of the reason for this is that the game is just going longer. Many teams, part of it is TI, maybe the nerves, is a lot of money on the line, maybe less than in the past, but it's still a lot of money. But also just the games are hard. Many teams are very good. So coming up to the high ground is pretty scary. It's also just kind of like the meta we're in. The high ground is tough right now. And so let's just build a really big gold lead. And if we know the game is going to go really late, what's a great item for that? Hand of Midas. So many teams are buying it because if the other team buys it and you don't and the game drags on, you're like, we're falling behind. Now we're going to lose because there's a massive net worth difference. So both teams are frequently buying Hand of Midas. And it's not just like a first item Hand of Midas. You're frequently seeing people buy Hand of Midas after 1 or 2 items to have the guaranteed scaling as the game continues. Once they kind of identify like, it doesn't look like we're winning in 20 minutes, so I'm going to get that Hand of Midas for that 40, 50, 60, 70 minute mark game and make sure I have the value there. And supports are also buying Hand of Midas. Sometimes first item, depending how good they are, how well they're doing, I mean. And this is a lot of fun. I've been testing this in my own pub games. It is tough. I don't want to encourage you all to do this because you might do it incorrectly. Here's the thing. You have to identify that you will be okay in the early game without other items. So you don't need the Solar Crest, the Four Staffs, the Glimmer Capes. You need to be able to do your job and do enough, possibly win without any of those items, or at least guarantee that you will survive further on. And if you buy the Hand of Midas, you're saying that later on, I'm going to be very powerful. I'm not a hero that is, early game focused, and I'm totally missing my mark by building this Hand of Midas when I should be building early aura items. I do have scaling potential. I have early game impact without any items, and if I do get a lot of items, I have a lot of potential there. So if you can identify that, and you can also identify your teammates are not going to tilt out when they see you building Hand of Midas, you could bring this to your pub games. I do think it's good. Many popular supports right now have a lot of scaling potential, but it can be a grief if you're not sure what you're doing. I'd say these are the tier 1 heroes that are pretty much picked or banned in the first phase the most, and then I'd say like this is the tier 2. Now you could add or remove some of these heroes, but it gets more team specific at that point about which heroes they like. And, we can't go into every single one of those. That is for like the pro coaches and the pro teams to figure out. This is just in general, all very good heroes if you want to play them in your pubs. This part is pretty transferable to the pub scene. But I will say that some of the value here is flex value that I didn't talk about in the meta trends, because it's not really a meta thing. That has just always been something useful in the pro scene. And there's a lot of flexing going on, more so than ever in the past, I would say. Many of these heroes, like Dazzle, for example, could be your mid, could be your support, could be an offlaner even. Invoker, mid support, mid offlane, mid carry, support roles, possibly an off lane. So there's a lot of flexibility between many of these heroes, and you can also see a lot of those trends we talked about. So all of these heroes are pretty much fairly low cooldown, active all the time. We got a lot of tanky heroes here like Kunkka, Primal Beast, Earth Spirit, Spirit Breaker. We have armor manipulation from Dazzle, Pango, TA, even Invoker with his the spirits, right? Venge. What else did I say? Anti-heal actually isn't too much on this page because there's only a few heroes with anti-heal, but you notice many of these heroes are happy to buy a very fast spirit vessel in case they don't have it as part of their natural toolkit. We have percentage damage from a hero like Phoenix. Shadow Demon has Disseminate, which shares a percentage of damage. So when you use it, say there's a Kunkka on the enemy team, he's super tanky, you disseminate him, you throw in tons of damage on the Kunkka, it's actually going to share out to the other heroes in the area as well. You have some like Vengeful Spirit who has damage reduction percentage. So when you swap one of your tanky teammates who already had like 5,000 health, now they're taking 50% reduced damage on top of their own damage reductions. They just become so hard to kill. You're seeing a lot of these concepts come into here. I want to quickly mention some unexpected heroes maybe you didn't think you'd see at TI, or they're just fun. So if you want to try them in your pubs, go for it. First is Bristleback, who some people were already on the Bristleback train, but I think in the pro scene, even though we got buffed last patch and didn't change anything this patch, the heroes that are popular changed. So in the last patch, Phantom Assassin was really popular. She has a shard that breaks. Gyrocopter and Sven were really popular. They're natural Silver Edge builders if they need it, and against Bristleback you would build it. Bristleback plays like a carry from the offlane, so you take some time to hit this critical mass before you ramp up the pressure. But if by the time you reach that point, the other carries you're playing against already naturally counter you with the items they have, then your game sucks. But now those heroes are nerfed and gone, and he has armor reduction, he is naturally tanky, he has quill sprays which stack up in these long drawn out fights versus other tanky heroes, so he does nutty amounts of physical damage, especially with this new Ags build he's been going. So very good hero right now if you want to give him a shot. I think he's going to become more popular as TI continues. Weaver, he's a hero that is seeing just a bit of play. It's not nearly as popular as others, but he just wasn't being played at all before, so I think seeing a little bit of play is encouraging if you like Weaver, especially if you played Weaver support. There are a couple games of Weaver support. I think he is kind of doing the same annoying stuff as before, but the Swarm, the bugs, are very annoying to deal with for these tanky heroes because one, their armor is being reduced, multiple heroes being hit by bugs, and tanky heroes tend to not have the fastest attack speed naturally, and so it takes them a long time to deal with the bugs, so it's just very annoying for them to deal with him. Centaur Warrunner, already considered a very good offlaner, but I did see one game of Centaur Warrunner support by Ari on TSM. Maybe there were others and I just missed them, but if you wanted to give it a go, it is now pro approved if you guys want to try that out. Then we have Ogre Magi. I'm still a little lost on Ogre Magi, but he's actually being played in the mid lane on occasion, and I think the concept is that these other tanky mid lane heroes, you actually have higher base damage than a lot of them, so you just out deny them, and their whole game plan is have a decent laning stage, get very active, get these items. But if you just wreck them in the laning stage because they have no last hits, they don't really reach that point. I think that's the idea behind Ogre Magi. I'm still not fully convinced on it, but he is winning some games, and I mean that shows that there is potential there. So if you guys want to give it a go, there it is. Then we have Wraith King, who I realize is not aligned with these other heroes, but it's too late. Wraith King, So there's an offlane Wraith King build that some people like myself enjoy, but it seemed kind of like a meme. But it's happening. It is happening at TI. So people are picking up an early Wraith King in the draft, and it's just like, is he going carry? Is he going offlane? Who knows? Flex value. And then you have this offlane Wraith King who's honestly, he's doing okay for himself, because all you need to do is stun. He could build Blade Mail if he wants. He could build Heart, the Skelly Boy build, doing lots of damage if you want to go that route as well. He's being played. It's cool. Then we have Doom, who many people thought was a dead hero, but he is being picked a little bit, and I think his potential there is going to grow. Because if you think about it, he's got anti-heal on his ultimate, he has percentage damage on his Infernal Blade, he doesn't mind building the Shivas, he's naturally tanky himself, and he buys like Midas, he's got Devour for these longer games, so he's got a lot of things going for him. The numbers are maybe not so good, which is part of why he died off, but conceptually, he fits a lot of good things in this meta. He's being played a little bit as an offlaner and as a 4 support, so I think teams are going to explore with him a bit more if this current trend of tanky heroes and all this stuff continues. So now we're going to try to go through like some of the top heroes and just quickly explain why they are good, why you're seeing them so much. Treant Protector, very strong position 5 hero. You can play in position 4 as well, so a little bit of flex there. Very stable. Even if you first phase him, he just wins most lanes or just gets you through them at worst. Later on, you've got the Shard to scout people out, set things up. You've got your ultimate to pierce BKB, lock people down like Pango, who wants to be very mobile. You have the Leech Seed heal to, keep up all these active plays, and then the Living Armor to contribute globally, as well as boost up all these tanky heroes by giving them more armor. Pango, we don't actually have to talk too much about Pango because he has been very popular for quite a while. You'll notice his win rate isn't very good, but it's a good time to mention that you can't fully take these win rates as the whole story. Because Pango, if you dive a little bit deeper into the games, which I only did at a service level, so I'm not going to go that much into it, but many pro teams are still scared of Pango, which is why you see him so hotly contested. But the best teams, when they face the worst teams, they're kind of like, we can probably let Pango through. And so some of the teams that have already been knocked out of TI are the ones that were getting to play Pango. And it may not be Pango who is bad, but just the teams who are playing them just not as good at using Pango, or just, good, not as good as the teams they were playing against. And so his win rate looks worse. But a lot of the top tier teams are still banning him and picking him when available. And so don't take this win rate as the complete story. However, I will also say maybe Pango is overrated. He has been good for such a long time, and he keeps getting hit with these nerfs. And a lot of us keep saying, oh, well, it's not really affecting the diffusal, swashbuckle, plus ultimate that makes him so good. But how many times can you say that until he's actually nerfed? So maybe he is being overrated, and that explains some of the win rate, but again, it may not be the whole story. Maybe it's just the teams that aren't as good are the ones that are lowering this win rate. Dazzle wrecks a lot of the popular mid heroes right now, and so you can just pick him to win your mid lane, and if he gets countered too much, you just switch him to the 5 role. He offers a lot through his Shard. It's the low cooldown Hex, and with your ultimate, right, it's just coming out repeatedly in these fights, along with tons of healing. You try to kill this super tanky hero, Grave, heal them up. They step out of the fight with a heart, they come back in full health. Wow, that's super cool, right? Super low cooldown on Dazzle, so it's very annoying to deal with whether he is a hard support or a carry, and so he is mostly banned, actually. He's the most banned hero because no one wants to deal with that shit. He can also build Midas if he really wants, but usually if he's playing core, many people are skipping that. He farms fast enough with an Aghanims, which is really powerful. He's a universal hero, so he actually scales up quite well as the game continues. Kunkka is a very stable mid laner. Even if you counter pick him, he can always just jungle really quickly with his W, so it's hard to truly shut down a Kunkka, who can then either go the Blade Mail Heart build we've been talking about. He can get the Aghanims Water Park build for a lot of lockdown. You can move him to the off lane if he's really countered. So he just offers a lot, very low cooldown. And X Mark, bonus value to this, is very good versus a new BKB because you can apply it to people. So even if they BKB and teleport out, because X Mark lasts for 4 seconds, you can pretty much always pull people back unless they have a longer duration BKB. Because the thing is, at a 6-second BKB, which is the lowest cooldown, you BKB, instantly TP, right before the TP finishes, you X marks them, which means they get back to base, 3 seconds pass, the BKB ends, and then the X mark pulls them back. So very strong hero because of that when dealing with BKBs, along with everything else we just talked about. Invoker is a classic mid hero. You can always flex him into the 4 support role as well. Very high tempo with his most recent rework in terms of the regen he got, which has been getting nerfed, but at this point is still pretty decent to play. So you can get this fast Spirit Vessel. You can be active on the map. Universal now, so decent scaling in terms of like you want to go right click to deal with these tanky heroes, you can. But of all the heroes who have insane amounts of like magic damage, Invoker is one of those heroes with Cataclysm, with the meteors. I was thinking meatballs for a bit, which is like you guys would have understood. He just pumps out damage along with armor reduction from the Forge Spirits and the alacrity to boost up his teammates as well. Brewmaster's been getting some nerfs, but not enough, so still just offers a ton in the laning stage. A very common build is like Spirit Vessel into the Hand of Midas for the scaling, along with like just generally being tanky, and then the Brewlings being very annoying. The Brewlings are also a very safe way to siege the high ground, which did get nerfed, but maybe just not quite enough still. And so it's still a great hero to just first phase, and you've solved a lot. You got team fight, you got a stable lane, you got late game scaling, just offers a ton. Primal Beast is another stable mid laner that you can flex into the off lane, even a support role if you have to. The Heart build works because his trample actually scales off his own attack damage. Then he becomes naturally hard to kill with any tank items he gets, but he also has armor from Uproar, pierces BKB with his ultimate, has the charge for stun and mobility, so like what doesn't he have? He's a great hero. Phoenix is a very popular support, either role. Some off lane games, not too many, but there has been some flex there. Has that percentage damage and heal, has attack slows from the Fire Spirits, which also do a lot of damage, but the attack slow, very annoying versus many of these meta heroes who don't have the best attack speed, which means Egg is very easy to get off right now. Can also build Spirit Vessel if you need it, so just good versus many of the heroes. Great team fight through the Egg, which is relatively consistent right now. Snapfire is in a terrible spot. She's one of the best Egg counters, and she is pretty much off the meta after she got nerfed in one of the patches before. Templar Assassin is being banned more than she is being played. I don't fully understand this hero, I'll be honest, but my impression is that this win rate doesn't tell the whole story. In fact, is countered by the fact that when she's banned out, those games are going well. So I think the issue here is that TA counters many of these melee mids that are strength heroes, don't have a bunch of armor. She is range, she has the splash or the spill damage, whatever. She has the negative armor. Refraction, very good versus these hard-hitting heroes who don't have like very many damage over time instances to break refraction. So she counters many of these melee mids. You don't want to first phase her, like first pick her, because she can be countered. But if she is in the pool and you don't want to first pick her, but you want to take like Invoker or Kunkka, but then they can counter with TA, and you don't want that, so you have to ban her out even if you're not going to first pick her, because she could be the response to the first pick. Even if she does get through and then it doesn't look that great for her, you can just make her the carry as well if you want, if that like makes more sense for your draft. So she's got flex value, she counters a lot of heroes, she fits the meta, and I don't think this win rate tells the whole story. Muerta is a good first pick because she can be flexed between carry and support, and in fact most of these games are support because you just pick her so early that the enemy team has time to adjust. If they don't, you just run carry, it's fine, but if they do, you just put her in support. Deadshot and the calling, very powerful abilities. Scaling because she is a carry, right? So if the game goes too long, Muerta is terrifying to deal with. But I will throw out that the calling is very good versus these melee heroes. It's very easy to trap them in that area, constantly silence them up, and make their life very difficult when they want to play Dota. Spirit Breaker seeing a lot of play, mostly as an offlaner or a support, but there have been a couple mid lane games as well. And I will say 4 support more than 5 support, but I think I've seen a couple 5 support games because he's just that good. The buff he got means he can one-shot creep waves sooner than he used to be able to, which helps with his farming speed and cutting the huge map a bunch. Because of that huge map, charging around on a low cooldown to join all these early fights are great. He's a tanky hero himself, and when you're against all these melee heroes, you're just bashing everyone when you charge through these fights. Grimstroke combos with all these melee heroes really well because of Inkswell, and then the silence is very good. Again, that low attack speed makes it difficult to deal with the silence, and because so many melee heroes are in these games, your ultimate has a much easier time just binding people together. In the case that there are very strong carries like Chaos Knight or like, you know, the usual carries are still being picked, like Faceless Void, some like Lunas, things like that. You can copy them with your Aghanim, so if the game does go late, then Grimstroke has that scaling potential as well. Bristleback we kind of talked about already, but he is good, so if you want to play him, go for it. Some people are not maxing out his E, the Bristleback, very much, because it means he takes more damage, which means Quill Sprays are going to come out faster, and he's tanky enough that he's able to afford taking more damage, especially if you're building a Bloodstone to heal off that damage you are doing. So if that's something you want to explore, feel free. We have Chaos Knight, who got buffed. His critical strike does more damage versus creeps, which means he heals more. So his laning stage has become a lot more consistent. And you'll see his win rate is quite good because just off a strong lane, you can join in a lot of early fights. You have a lot of burst potential with the physical damage. He's tanky himself. So just like hitting the mark on a lot of these Reality Rift and negative armor as well. I think Shadow Demon is better than this win rate suggests. I think it's more like the teams that were playing him. I think Disseminate's good, Disruption's good, the ult is very strong for some of these heroes, Pierce's BKB, things like that. You can copy your own illusion heroes like Chaos Knight, so I would still expect to see more Shadow Demon even though this win rate looks pretty bad. So let's just start speeding through because at this point it starts to drop off in the like total amount of games you might see them in. So like Earth Spirit Natures, there's some familiar faces, probably don't need much explanation. Same with like Venge, Dark Willow, and Skywrath, very solid 4 supports who you maybe don't want to first phase them, but you're seeing them a lot in the second phase. Once it looks like, okay, decent enough game, let's grab them. They tend to offer a lot, but they can be countered. So that's why like first phase is less common for them, but they will scale once you identify it's like a pretty good game for them. So I think they are pretty solid. Earthshaker, we see him as a mid and a 4 support. Ancient Apparition, I think we're going to see more of him. He just seems very impressive in all the games that I've noticed. Ice Blast, of course, having that anti-heal, helping you to finish off these very tanky heroes. Ice Vortex being very annoying in terms of slowing down all these melee heroes in a team fight. It has that spell amp, so I mentioned spell damage is hard to kill these heroes, but when you're boosting up that spell damage from a hero like AA, it does help. Cold Feet comboing with many of the popular heroes, so you can get that chain stun going. So yeah, he just seems better than I thought at this level, and I think we'll see more of him. Warlock is not doing as well as I thought. I know he did get nerfed, but I would think Upheaval is still very good against many of these heroes, as well as the Fatal Bonds helping you to get more shared damage against all these tanky heroes. But maybe that same idea, because they're also tanky with high regen, maybe Fatal Bonds just like isn't as good. I don't know. Or maybe your ultimate isn't doing as much because everyone's so tanky. A little surprised Undying isn't more popular with so many melee strength heroes, but maybe that will go up. He has been nerfed though, so just because he's conceptually good, I mean, like, you know, if he's just not a good hero himself, you know, maybe that's why he's a little lower down here on the list. Same with Necrophos, who is being picked up later on in the draft when it looks good to a decent win rate because he is good versus many of these heroes. Same with someone like ET. I think he might become a little more popular. Again, that idea of, okay, they have tons of health, but if we take away their resistances, we can deal with that. We might see a little bit more OD because I think OD makes sense versus many of these heroes, and Somnus is the one who has played this twice on Azure and has made it look very good both games. So maybe more teams will explore it in between this break, but he does make sense to me. I don't know, maybe it's just his numbers just maybe aren't good enough. Other heroes who I think conceptually make sense, but their numbers just aren't good enough are like Underlord, Venomancer, down here in like the totally unpicked heroes like Timbersaw and Winter Wyvern seem like they could potentially be good, but I just think they themselves are not very good heroes. Maybe we will see them later on. I think Slardar, I'm surprised. I guess all these nerfs just aren't good enough. His armor manipulation is very good. He's fairly tanky himself, but I don't know, I guess maybe just not good enough against some of these other popular heroes here at the top. I'll go ahead and stop there for now. Let me know if you would like more detail on any given hero. We can maybe try to make some guides. I don't know how many more videos we'll be able to make because I'm actually going to go to TI in about a week, so feel free to say hi if you see me, but I'm not sure if we'll be able to talk more about the trends because I'm not going to be here at my computer. So thank you for watching. Hope you found this enjoyable. I will see you in another video or maybe at TI.